New Orgrimmar and Stormwind coming, and they will be bigger. Well, we all know bigger is better. We want giant, stony, veiny cities. I don't know what that last part was there, but what we want really is I want updated cities. I do. I want big hub cities. Suramar to me showed us what a real city could look like in the game when Blizzard is given, the new way of doing things and everything else. And now in Undermine, the detail in Undermine, while it's not the biggest city in the world, is unbelievable. That city you can literally walk around any corner, and there is so much shit to look at that you could burst into a seizure. But anyways, let's see what Doran, the Teller of Truths, has discovered about the new cities.
So it looks like it is finally time for the two most important cities on Azeroth, Orgrimmar and Stormwind, to get their revamp to finally be updated.
I don't know if it's that, but we know Silvermoon's getting a revamp. That is for sure. In Midnight, Silvermoon getting the full rebuild. I didn't. We'll see about this.
Already had NPCs talking about how Orgrimmar, for example, should get a new port soon, how empty pots should be expanded upon. However, with the official Blizzard article on player housing, the picture is even clearer now. While the article talks about neighborhoods being instanced areas inspired by Durotar and Ashara and Elven Forest and Westfall, the artwork they showed heavily implies that these will be on the outskirts of the city where we will actually have our houses. Can you see the houses within the Durotar cannons? While the two capitals may not get a full makeover, the hints we have is that they will soon look quite a bit different to accommodate this new massive feature, which should also pull even more revamps.
So we do know that the player housing is not in the cities, though, so he's pulling off the player housing and saying that we're going to get some type of city remodel. We did see that Stormwind is in fact in the background. If you look at the art for the Alliance version of the player housing, we can see Stormwind there. But I guess I'll let him cook. We'll see.
What is everything we
what he's talking about?
Know? You can actually play War Within on your phone with Awesome, this video's
awesome.
sponsor. Check in on your characters or just play the game, as you can control your PC with your phone completely free. Awesome is super easy to use. Check out the link and download the PC and the phone app and just connect it. The free version itself is amazing. You can control your desktop, transfer files, but the real deal is the game version. It has custom keyboards for various games other than just WoW, and you can enjoy AFK gaming at any time, anywhere with game sound. Make sure to use my code ON to get 7 days completely
Use the man's code
only for the first 200 people. Startable Gaming is they got hot sales up to 40% off on Pro and Game versions. Check out Awesome. So by now it's been about 2 weeks since the initial announcement of the player housing. We've learned a few months back on that WoW conference they had that we are getting player housing. Then a few weeks back we data mined
this stuff.
And now Blizzard officially...
Honestly, what this data mining told me is this shit is going to be beyond customizable. I mean, there's data mining in here about moving stuff on a table, putting furniture in certain places. Like, this thing is not going to be a... it's not going to be a garrison at all. This is not going to be a cookie cutter look. Like, your player housing is going to be hyper customizable.
Mind some strings, and now Blizzard officially released a whole article that you probably saw already, explaining to us how this is all going to look like. Some of it is exciting, some of it is not as exciting, because what I fear the most turns out to actually be true, but it's not as bad as I thought it could be. We knew housing definitely wouldn't be Garrisons 2.0 with just an illusion of choice, but what I wonder the most personally is whether we would be able to choose from like 12 different locations, or whether they're unfortunately going to do like 2 locations, one for the Horde, one for the Alliance, just like the Garrisons, and unfortunately they decided to go for this option. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, because they did say...
It's not permanent. I mean, yeah, we are going to get other versions of player housing, but I understand. First implementation, you want to get it right, just go with the classics. Give us an orc one and a human one. And honestly, I was going to pick the human one, even if they gave us 50 different choices anyways, because it's the best. It's the best aesthetic.
This is just for the start of this new feature, so I think the Durotar and the Elven Forest neighborhoods are going to just be the start. They did heavily imply that more locations would be added later down the line. This is just for the start. They also stated that they had discussed this heavily. They don't want to go crazy on a million different locations all across Azeroth, as they feel the players would be spread out too far and the social factor would be gone if everyone was just living in their own corner of Azeroth. Now this is of course understandable, but the way I feel like it is going to happen is that we're getting the Stormwind and the Orgrimmar neighborhoods now before actual Midnight release, and when Midnight releases they're very likely going to expand it at least to Kualtalas, but potentially Lordran as well, to have at least a few more options. Let's be real, it is kinda lame for the Blood Elves to live in Durotar, it literally doesn't make any sense, and also for the Dwarves to live in like houses near Stormwind. There is just nothing similar about it.
I mean, the Dwarves makes a little bit more sense, but for sure a Blood Elf, they wouldn't do. Living in an orc hut, there's no way they would, you know, go down to that level.
It just doesn't fit at all. However, based on the artwork they proposed...
Yeah, there's Stormwind in the bed. That's the gates of Stormwind. So if you didn't, like, analyze this art when you first saw it and you're trying to figure out where they placed it in Elwynn Forest, if I had to say, yeah, it's got to be just outside the gates to the left. That's what it looks like here if you're taking this art seriously and you see Stormwind there. So, it's very close to the entrance of the city.
Some other hints.
It's got to be... This has to be actually before Goldshire. I don't know if maybe Goldshire would be considered to be up here or what, but this is really, really close to the entrance of the city. I mean, you could see it.
Based on the artwork they proposed and some other hints, what I feel like a lot of people are not...
Right here, this one's much easier to place. I mean, if you're looking at Orgrimmar, it's probably off to the bottom, right here, maybe behind my head, off to further to the side, because this is the coastal land right here. Right, so you got the little dock over here, usually maybe out in the back of the Zeppelin too. So this is pretty darn like just outside the entrance to Orgrimmar, to if you were looking at the gate to your right on the coastal water.
Not seeing, and you can see this when you read a little bit between the lines, is that an actual revamp of Orgrimmar and Stormwind seems likely, at least to an extent. I've made multiple videos on this in the past with a gradual revamp happening, but if you missed it when the War Within was released, we got an Earthen NPC from Castlegar in Orgrimmar talking about how there is just so much room left in Orgrimmar to expand the city, how it doesn't really look like a true capital of a faction as big as the Horde, and how those canyons can be used, and also the port can easily be expanded within the city. Now, when you combine this with the artwork that Blizzard just presented us in that official article, you can see that the houses seem to be layered in Durotar within these actual canyons that they had previously discussed. Now, check out what they told us. They did state that the neighborhoods will be both private and public with up to 50 different plots of land.
That's
so
good.
You will have active living neighbors. It won't be an isolated, unfortunate experience like the garrisons.
Yeah, that was the worst part about the garrisons. It was very isolating, and it isolated the entire player base from themselves. Not only that, though, you can make a shit ton of money just sitting in your garrison. So as long as they don't allow that, people just won't stay in their houses all day.
It will be instanced. It seems like this will be sort of a zone within a zone. They didn't say you're going to live on the outskirts of Orgrimmar and Stormwind specifically, but based on the artwork and what they said, it seems to be heavily implied. Just check this out. They told us that the Horde Zone is inspired by Durotar, the coastline, and Ashara. Now, the way you read this, it seems like they're going to add a new island off the shore, but just think about it. I mean, this is literally describing Orgrimmar. Orgrimmar is in Durotar, right on the border of Ashara. You can go into Ashara on the other end of Orgrimmar, and they're talking about the coastline, and Orgrimmar is...
Yeah, this is the dock that I was talking about. So right now, if I had to place this, I would say it's further down this way. Further to the right. I don't think they're going to add an island the way Doran said, but they're revamping these zones, so maybe it'll be like a little outstretch of it or something.
Literally on the coastline itself. So it really seems like they're going to settle us around those hills near Orgrimmar.
Yes, exactly,
the
right here.
Which should actually completely logically imply that Orgrimmar is also getting revamped together with this new giant player housing update. Obviously, I mean, they're not going to just...
I mean, the thing is, though, Orgrimmar got revamped. It got revamped in WoD, and although Durotar did not. So Durotar, if you look at the difference between Orgrimmar and Durotar right now, they look like they're made in two different times, right? So Durotar certainly needs a revamp, just like Elwynn Forest. Even Stormwind got a revamp Cataclysm time. So I don't know if this means that they're going to get revamped the cities necessarily, but certainly the areas around the cities are getting revamped.
Add these neighborhoods with a random portal on top of barren land, like where we already have all those portals to the various, Cataclysm zones. Almost certainly it will be a seamless transition, and the city is going to get expanded upon, despite the fact that this part will be instanced. I mean, obviously you're not going to have like a million different plots of land. I mean, that would lag pretty much any PC that exists. This actually perfectly matches with the hint that the Earthen that arrived in Orgrimmar told us. He said there is so much empty land around Orgrimmar, how new forges can be added, how Orgrimmar needs a real port. All of this is so realistic because
that's right.
Crazy times that I heard about.
I forgot about that Earthen's lines about Orgrimmar and Stormwind.
and Orgrimmar will need a strong port to launch the expeditions to Qualtalas and Northrend once again. Keep in mind, this line was actually added to this Earthen when player housing was already deep in production, so I feel like it is highly realistic that Orgrimmar is getting enlarged and the revamp, maybe slightly shifted with some newer areas to accommodate the upcoming neighborhoods. It also makes sense they would get a house in the suburbs of the capital instead of some random new zone that they just made up. Now, when it comes to Stormwind, here they're talking about how the zone is inspired by Elven Forest with only touches of Westfall and Duskwood. This also perfectly matches what I'm talking about. Not as perfect as Orgrimmar, but just take a look at the map and think for yourself.
Yeah, like if I had to put it where it was like off to the left of the entrance, actually. So I felt like the neighborhood was kind of right here. It could be in these hills as well, like this hilled area right behind my head. If I move my little cam, it could be over here too. And we were looking at it from an angle, but it looked like it was closer than Goldshire. So maybe like right on the water, right off these hills or something. If you took the art like literally how it was, and the Westfall's right here too. So maybe if it is in these hills, yeah, it's taking inspiration from Westfall and Elwyn Forest.
Stormwind is right at the top of Elwyn Forest, but the bottom hills are matching the outskirts of Westfall. Can you
Not
see
on your
those empty hills between these two pots right around Westbrook?
Yeah, this is exactly where I was just pointing out. These are if you look at the map, this is the hills right here, and Westfall's right here.
Around Westbrook, this is also where Elwyn Forest meets Duskwood as well. Keep in mind what they said. Orgrimmar is right on the border of Ashara and Durotar, so they told us that it is inspired by Durotar and Ashara and the coastline. For Stormwind specifically, they told us that the neighborhoods will be inspired by Elven Forest mainly, with only touches of Westfall and Duskwood. I know it might make a bit more sense to be inspired by maybe the upper areas, but it actually doesn't. I mean, Westfall and Duskwood are like the Alliance areas, the most notable areas that everyone is familiar with. So realistically, it really seems like these neighborhoods are not just going to be shoehorned in randomly, but that they will be a part of a natural expansion of our two capitals. Another bit of logic when I'm coming with this is because
I don't think they're just going to lay the player houses, as he said, just in the zone. There's definitely going to be a revamp to the zones, but I don't know about the cities.
For the start, that this will be added to just the Horned Alliance capital, but it seems like they will add more. By the way things are going, it doesn't seem like they're going to add neighborhoods to every player capital. However, I think they want to bunch up a few things here as well. It really does seem like that in Midnight we're getting part 2 of the player housing neighborhoods. First of all, they talked about how Silvermoon will be enlarged.
Silvermoon's definitely getting revamped.
Destroy pods will be fixed, where they will add new player housing. This way they can concentrate it, but they don't need to spread it too thin.
I mean, we did look at the player base, right? Blood Elves were the most played race. Elves in general are the most played races in the game, but Blood Elves were by far and away the most played race in the game. So I would think the next player housing, aesthetic that we're going to get is Blood Elf. That would be the most popular one. So that's the one we're probably going to see next. And that, like he's saying, that could come with the Silvermoon revamp.
Yeah. So you would have more primal, rougher areas for housing around Orgrimmar, which would work well for races like the Orcs, Trolls, and the Tauren, while the other plot of land around revamped Silvermoon might be the more refined areas for other races. So, for example, the Blood Elves would have a completely different aesthetic for their houses. Furthermore, if more things happen at Midnight, they could do something similar to Gilneas or Undercity for another version, so like a Lordran version. So really, I was talking for years.
I wish, man. I wish they rebuilt Lordaeron. Fuck the Undercity. Rebuild Lordaeron as a hub city capital for the Alliance and the Horde. I would love to see it in its full glory. I'd love to walk the path of Arthas Menethil as he returned with the rose petals falling and everything. Man, what a moment that would be. And then, the humans and the undead coming together, living once again in Lordaeron.
It's about how they're settling
if
every
only.
race
More of a reason not to do it.
Housing. And while now it doesn't seem to be fully the case, it also doesn't eliminate this theory. I mean, obviously, based on the official article, it doesn't seem like every race capital will have their own neighborhoods, but it also seems like more areas will have it rather than just Orgrimmar or Stormwind, so they will very likely be added in future expansions. Honestly, I think they want to monitor how the player housing is going to perform before they start spreading it out more. I really think it would be great if
But Blizzard did say that they have a dedicated player housing team. This is not just some kind of like add-on thing that the guys who are doing Mythic Plus are working on the side. No, they have like a dedicated team that this is all they're doing now. So they have the resources to do it. It's just going to be, do they want to keep expanding on it or not? I think that's maybe what they'll wait to see.
housing is actually a seamless path to the capitals, and that it really feels like we're living in the city or around it at least. I think it will be totally lame if this was some portal island, some instance area that doesn't even feel like it is a part of the world, like
I agree with that.
Ignore. So for the start, since we are getting Elven Forest and Durotar, it is heavily implied that these two major capitals, two most important cities on Azeroth, will finally get revamped. Very likely not completely. I mean, don't expect Stormwind to now be Suramar 2.0 that looks
best city in the game.
But do you remember that area, for example, that was destroyed in Stormwind back in Cataclysm, and then it was updated with new graphics, or the port that was updated? That kind of fit seamlessly with the city. I think something along those lines will be happening to accommodate player housing, and we will see more surrounding areas affected by this as well. In terms of Orgrimmar, I'm expecting some of those empty hills to be populated to add player housing, and for a legit port to be added to the whole capital. It is crazy that the
Orgrimmar's port is fucking sad, I'll be honest. It is. Like, for a major horde hub city, even if the orcs couldn't build one out, they could have had the goblins do it or something, but my god, they just literally have this, like, one stick out. That's it, this T-bone port.
Port has some ratchet makeshift port that can barely fit
compared to the Alliance's version.
Launching worldwide expeditions from this place. I mean, it's hilarious when you compare the Storm and Port to the
revamped, right? Why it's instanced, right? Yes, the new, what's it called? The new neighborhoods are going to be instanced, but
use another
Mikey coming in with the tier 1, 14 months. Thank you so much, Mikey. I appreciate that. What he's trying to get at as, and Blizzard did, you know, soft confirm this, Elwynn Forest and Durotar are going to get, you know, revamped. They're going to get up-resed a bit. You're not just going to have this instance where you walk in and all of a sudden you're in an up-resed version of Elwynn Forest where all the trees look better. That'll be weird if your neighborhood looks so different from Elwynn Forest that you can't even tell it's Elwynn Forest anymore. So they're going to revamp those zones. He's trying to say that, oh, this means they're also creating all these new assets and everything, so they're going to also revamp the cities a little bit. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch. I do think the zones themselves are getting revamped. I don't know about the cities, but that's what he's saying.
I don't think the port will be a focus.
Calm your tits,
more
Sam.
Outdated parts being fixed. We might get a more natural expansion of the city because, remember, supposedly Stormwind is a gigantic city with more than 1 million people living between the walls, which I feel like might at least slightly be better represented in the game soon.
So if damn it.
The game or
damn it, I fucking clicked the damn thing. They do need more, they need more, what's it called? People in Stormwind. I mean, Stormwind does have millions of people in their population. They do need more people in Stormwind for sure.
Check out my raid channel by clicking on the screen as
nice
well.
video.
See you next time.
Yeah, I would like the cities to feel more alive for sure. I don't know if a revamp's coming to the cities necessarily, but I'm excited maybe to see an up-res Elwynn Forest, see an up-res Durotar. I mean, these are leveling zones that we've known from the very beginning, and they really haven't changed since the very beginning. Even in Cataclysm, those zones really weren't really touched that much. So up-reses to those. If there is a rebuild, Silvermoon for sure is getting one. Stormwind and Orgrimmar.
We have a realm to
We'll have to see. J. Will, thank you for the follow. A nice video from Doran, though. Always fun to speculate.